Welcome to Top 10 Nerd. Well, it's that magical time of year where Marvel and DC fans can come together and argue over who is the superior publisher while wearing truly heinous looking sweaters.
But one thing I think we can agree on is that Santa, that guy slays.
While Saint Nick has shown up in both Marvel and DC, his appearances in Marvel are just a little bit more astounding and kind of confusing.
So, we're gonna talk about it.
This year, as a special stocking stuffer for the best group of viewers on the whole internet, we will be attempting to explain Marvel Comics' Santa Claus.
Oh boy. Where does Santa come from? The age-old question so many of us have been wondering what the answer to is for years. I'm still wondering, but don't worry, children and adults of all kinds, I'm gonna tell you the answer. At least I will tell you in regards to what we know of Santa from his origin over at Marvel Comics. For the real Santa, I can't really say. I'm sworn to secrecy. Santa gets his existence and power from humanity's belief in him though at Marvel Comics. Kinda like the gods from the Distinguished Competition, aka DC Comics, or at least the gods from DC's Vertigo imprint. The gods showcased in Neil Gaiman's The Sandman seem to get their power from humanity's belief and need for them. So as some gods become less influential and important in humanity's day-to-day life, they also become less powerful, basically shadows of their former selves. With Santa, there are three people he is often mistaken for, and whose origins people often mistakenly attribute to him. Though if Santa was brought to life by kind of like all three of these legendary figures, then I suppose in a way it's not a mistake because all of their origins kind of are his origins. Anyways, who are these three legends, you ask? Well, one story suggests that Santa Claus is possibly actually none other than, or at least inspired by, the story of Odin's generosity one midwinter night. That's right, we are talking about Odin, the Allfather of Asgard. Some people think of Santa as Odin. Oh boy. This story takes place on a night where a village's midwinter's feast was under threat, while at the same time, so was the existence of Asgard. Asgard had been threatened by Grylak the Greater, a troll who threatened to destroy the realm of Asgard with an asteroid if he was not given control of it by the Allfather. You know Odin is not gonna just do that, but anyways. At the same time on Earth, Sigurd and his crew were returning home to the feast when their boat was caught in a really bad storm. Sia, Sigurd's wife, prayed for the safety of her husband and his crew to Odin. Odin, being the wise god he is, and the super nice god he is, at least in Marvel Comics, decided to solve both problems simultaneously. He had Thor gather materials for the feast from Asgard, find linens, food, and wine, then he had Thor use Mjolnir to obliterate the asteroid. The flash of light from the destructive explosion helped Sigurd and his crew sail on safely home. Odin brought the resources gathered to Sia as gifts, disappearing on a sleigh afterwards pulled by flying rams before Sigurd returned, calling out, "A good midwinter to all, and to all a good life." Another theory suggests that Santa is actually the spirit of the winter season, or at least once was. This idea is inspired by an alleged custom from pre-medieval Britain. The custom involved elders of communities dressing up in furs and being referred to as Old Winter while traveling from home to home. The thought here was that those who showed kindness to Old Winter would also be showed kindness by the winter season. Respect and kindness equals respect and kindness. I like it, makes sense. Following the rise of Christianity, the central character of the custom was changed somewhat from Old Winter to Old Christmas, and then to Old Father Christmas, before finally becoming simply known as Father Christmas. Finally, one of the other common stories, possibly the most common story in modern times, is that of Saint Nicholas. Saint Nicholas was a man from the area near what we now know as Turkey, hailing from the 4th century where he became the Bishop of Myra. Nicholas was known for his kind heart, his giving nature, his love of children, and for making miracles happen. Ooh, miracles. Many stories were told about him, but the most famous one involves him helping a family to pay for their daughter's dowries by sneaking gold into their house. I don't know why you wouldn't just give them the gold, but hey. After a few attempts, he succeeded in this one night when he had managed to get a bag of gold down the family's chimney. The gold supposedly appeared the morning after in stockings that had been left out to dry over the fireplace. Ooh, Christmassy. Nicholas did not brag about his good deeds and himself was pretty humble, but eventually word of his charity and the miracles he seemingly caused spread, causing him to become celebrated by people even outside of Myra. People often made a habit of attributing unexpected gifts and mysterious acts of charity to him. Following his death, a church was built in his honor. Tales of St. Nicholas would eventually make their way to the ears of Russian royalty, who decided to make St. Nicholas the patron saint of Russia. Tales also spread spread to the Netherlands, where he was initially known as Sint Nicholas, then Sinterklaas, which would go on to inspire the name Santa Claus. Get it? December 5th became a day of giving in his honor, being the day before he died. However, this tradition would then be combined with the story of the birth of Jesus, with December 25th becoming the day that we celebrate instead, now known as Christmas. Santa, however, is kind of like a combination of all these figures, but also is his own thing. When humanity's belief combined with the three legends and spiritual energy, we got a recipe for one Santa Claus, please. Santa is believed to be a physical manifestation of generosity, something that all three legends share in theme. But he also might be a mutant. More on that later. After coming into being, Santa set up his home base in Finland, initially in a city known as Korventunturi. He would ride around on horseback delivering presents on Christmas morning. Later, he'd upgrade his operation after he met and married Mrs. Claus. They would move to the North Pole and create a workshop there before expanding his empire further by employing a workforce of elves, mainly made up of the light elves of Elfheim, to help them in creating gifts and toys. In regards to Santa's first appearance in Marvel Comics, it's super weird, but that's kind of what I love about it, so here we go. Santa's first appearance happened in November of 1955 in Strange Tales issue number 34, where he appeared as a magical, jolly fellow who also has a really sweet red car. Now that's my kind of Santa. The story begins at a garage and service station where we are introduced to Sammy Glenn, who works as a station attendant. Sammy is apparently both a genius and a man with a big generous heart, but simply with the worst luck in all of his life. After all, how else did he end up working here? Could it be a lack of ambition, or I don't know, simply due to his low self-esteem? Definitely not. It's just something that happened to poor Sammy and that he has zero control over, I'm sure. Sammy spends some time feeling bad for himself, inner monologue style, before getting shamed by an old friend, Ben Graham, who stops by to get gas, with Ben taking every opportunity to rag on Sammy for being too nice. Because apparently the theme of Sammy's life is nice guys finish last while jerks only ever succeed, I guess. The next day at work, a mysterious man arrives. He ends up presumably getting a top up on gas and a car tune-up because he decides to leave his car there for 6 hours. That's gotta be some kind of tune-up, that's a long time. The man asks Sammy to watch his things closely because he refuses to lock up anything and secure his own valuables. So that's on Sammy. Even though Sammy is tipped well and presumably the car is there to have something done to it for 6 hours, Sammy decides to dress up in the man's clothes and takes his car for a joyride to give himself a taste of the high life. He drives back home to rub his pretend success in everybody's face. Yep, what a nice guy he is. I'll parade my success in front of their bulging eyes. Wes Morrow, the banker, Madge Grammer, the girl who turned me down, Jim Leverett, the lawyer. I'll look up Jim first. So it turns out Jim's dead. Madge looks like she's about to die after having 4 kids and apparently a failure of a husband, and Wes is now homeless. Disappointed in how everyone that came out of his hometown, including himself, turned out to be a failure, Sammy heads to an exclusive executive club for a drink before returning the car, and is surprised that he actually succeeds to get in. Another theme in this weird holiday story: fake it till you make it. Sammy meets a woman who mistakes him for another club member and asks him what he does. When he tells her that he's in between jobs but is hoping to get a job in engineering research, she decides to just give him her number. Super realistic, I think. A man overhears Sammy is looking for work in engineering and straight up offers him a job in the field, because the man thinks Sammy is a bona fide club member. I can't believe it! I'm Sammy Glenn, the guy who never had a break in his life! Suddenly, a beautiful woman falls for me, the president of a big corporation offers me a top job. From nobody, suddenly I'm somebody. I have money, success. Why? Because Santa, that's why. The final panels reveal that the garage calendar shows today as Christmas. And who is the mystery man who left his car, suit, and belongings unsecured? Why, Santa, of course. Apparently, if you pity yourself enough and temporarily steal Santa's belongings for an afternoon, you too can have it all, thanks to the miracle of Christmas. This is where I'd have glitter and I'd throw it. Hold up! As a gift to us, why not like this video and subscribe for more Top 10 Nerd? Seriously, the miracle of Christmas, you gotta do it, okay? Bye.
Now we're gonna move on to Santa Claus's major appearances. A lot of Santa's appearances have been in passing, like in the Strange Tales of the Unusual short story where a Scrooge-like man has a change of heart during Christmas and Santa just waltzes on by and at the end of the story and says, Good job. Now, because that's rather boring, I'm going to talk about some of his more interesting appearances after his first really weird one. Starting with his notable appearances in Howard the Duck Volume 2 Issue 3, with a release date of December 4th, 1979 and a cover date of February 1980. Because the world is constantly changing and we as humans as a species are constantly advancing and growing, and because Santa is hella old, he decides to try and modernize to fit in. He cuts down his beard to be more slick, he rebuilds his sleigh to be self-propelled using Roxxon Oil's high-octane fuel instead of subjecting his reindeer to the emotional and physical stress of doing the job, and he also opened up a nuclear power plant and a gas station up in the North Pole. Unfortunately, one of the villainous workers at the plant, named Greedy Killerwatt, decided he was going to take over Christmas as revenge against society for a mutation that made him look like a light bulb. He convinced a convict named Pinball Lizard, who Santa had hired for his fun and games department, to try and bring Santa down by not putting enough gas in his sleigh so that the big man would crash. And in his absence, they would take over the toy workshop, forcing the elves to make mass-produced toys that just straight up suck. Luckily though, when Santa's sleigh crashed, the crash happened in Cleveland, where Santa ran into Howard the Duck. They, Howard and Santa, return to the North Pole, where a battle breaks out between Santa, Howard, and the loyal forces of North Pole against the mutated villains and their mutated animal minions. But that wasn't his only Howard the Duck story. In Howard the Duck Holiday Special Volume 1, Issue 1 from 1996, we got a story called Wreck the Malls with Hydra's Folly, where the old jolly guy becomes just upset with humanity's lack of faith and belief, so he sells the entire gift-making and giving Christmas enterprise to Hydra. This time, Howard the Duck was working as a mall Santa, and he gets recruited by an elf alongside a bunch of other mall Santas to save Christmas. Now his next big appearance, and probably one of Santa's most notable ones, was in Marvel Holiday Special Volume 1, released on November 19th, 1991, with a cover date of December 1991. In a little story called A Miracle a Few Blocks Down from 34th Street, 'twas the day before Christmas, and all through the Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, Cerebro detected what it called the most powerful mutant ever registered, who had just miraculously appeared in New York's Rockefeller Center. The X-Men obviously went off to investigate, but this massively powerful mutant was also detected by a group of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, who also went to try and capture the mutant for their own evil purposes, resulting in a clash between the two factions. But this mutant just happened to be Santa Claus himself, who used his insane power to briefly transform the Brotherhood into toys. He teleported the X-Men away, erased everyone's memory, and then made it snow, giving New York the first white Christmas in a hot minute. Next up, in Sensational She-Hulk Volume 1, number 8, and also number 36, released August 1st, 1989 and December 3rd, 1991, respectively. At this time in his life, Santa Claus had decided that, with his ability to know who was naughty and nice, he would make an absolutely show-stealing detective. So that's what he does, becoming Nick St. Christopher. And together with She-Hulk, they take on the investigation of a killer. He even gets the hots for old Jennifer Walters, which gets Mrs. Claus a little bit jealous. By the end of the story, he gives Jen a gift that allows her to temporarily transform into her human form so she can have a normal Christmas with her family. So nice. Now for the next Santa story, we can look to Marvel Age Volume 1, number 109 from February of 1992. This story, told by Captain America to some kids, takes us back in time to December 1943, when the leader of the German Axis forces during World War II, who will remain nameless, captured Santa Claus to try and destroy the morale of the USA. But President Franklin Roosevelt sent the heroes Nick Fury, Captain America, and James Bucky Barnes to rescue old Saint Nick. There was also Marvel Holiday Spectacular magazine from 2009, which contained the story from a continuity that never existed: Santa Claus versus the Illuminati. Here, Iron Man calls together the Illuminati because it turns out that all of Santa's reindeer were actually Skrulls. With no way to make his Christmas deliveries the traditional way, the Illuminati instead give Claus the Infinity Gems and Infinity Gauntlet, which actually corrupted the Saint. Luckily, Namor got him with a snowball to the schnauzer that knocked him over and caused the gauntlet to fall off. Instead of giving Santa the assembled Infinity Gauntlet, Iron Man just makes Santa some robotic reindeer. Why he didn't do that in the first place? I don't know, I just work here. Last but not least, by any stretch of the imagination, we have got to talk about Deadpool Volume 7, Issue number 7, released in December of 2018. Discovering that on Christmas Day no one had delivered their presents, a group of enraged children, who seem to be between the age of 5 and 9, find Deadpool's hideout and hire the mercenary with money from a Go Pay Me campaign to take out the Big Claus himself for failing them. You see, Santa has been doing his thing for a long time, but that doesn't make him any good at running a business. Instead, one of his elves named Tinsel took the lead in organizing all of the operations of the North Pole. But Tinsel wanted to bring in outside help to cut the cost of their operation, and Santa ain't no sellout, except for that one time with Hydra. So he refuses. Tinsel, being the little troublemaker that he is, went around and convinced all the other elves that Santa was oppressing them, and he convinced them to all do a little walkout. Santa didn't take this too well and let himself go and became a massive manic mess. But like all of these stories, you'll have to read it yourself for all the fun little details because we're moving on. But before we do that, just some honorable mentions. Absolutely check out Power Man and Iron Fist's Sweet Christmas Annual from 2016 to see Santa take on Krampus himself, and King in Black Iron Man / Doom number 1 from 2021 to see those two directly take on Santa and question their own beliefs. Now, we're actually moving on.
Powers and abilities. Marvel's Santa has a wide variety of powers and abilities, but the source of his powers seems to be a bit inconsistent. In the Marvel Holiday Special of 1991, which Adam already talked about, where Cerebro informs them that it has located the most powerful mutant on Earth, this implies that the powers he uses in his appearances are manifestations of his mutation, such as when he turns the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants into action figures and then teleports the X-Men away from him with a touch of his nose, wiping their minds of the interaction in the process. However, in a breakdown of the character featured in Marvel Holiday Spectacular 2009, where they talk about his powers, he is said to be using magic to accomplish his feats, and they never bring up the fact that he's a mutant, let alone the most powerful one on Earth. There is some contention as to whether the ability to use magic is a mutant power or a separate thing, but whatever the source of his abilities, they are undeniably amazing. They are for the most part similar to the powers attributed to most other versions of the character, but with that slight Marvel weirdness. He is immortal, having looked like an old man for centuries, and seems to have reality-altering powers, being able to turn people into toys as mentioned before. Although his flying reindeer were apparently a gift from Odin, he can also magically empower animals, such as when he made a group of huskies capable of flight when his reindeer were rendered unavailable. Lending further credence to the magic theory, his strength is doubled on Christmas Eve, making him capable of lifting up to 2 tons. He also accomplishes many of his feats with the help of magical artifacts. For example, his sack is really a tesseract that creates a portal to another dimension that he uses to store the various gifts he needs to deliver. Although he is usually drawn as a white guy, he is actually using a psychic mirroring ability that will make him appear as the same race as whoever is looking at him. Speaking of psychic powers, he of course is able to determine who is naughty and who is nice, which he also uses to be the world's greatest detective, like when he teamed up with She-Hulk in Sensational She-Hulk number 8. Perhaps his most impressive feat of magic was in the Gwenpool Holiday Special, when he removed himself from Christmas to take a year off and made everyone on Earth forget him, and made it so that it was Galactus who gave gifts to the well-behaved children. Although this did cause a side effect of other holidays being affected, such as when Thanksgiving became Pantsgiving, where everyone gives each other tight hot pants. He prefers not to use his powers for combat, but that doesn't mean he is a slouch in that department. In his appearance in Deadpool Volume 7 number 7, he and Deadpool enter an intense brawl, and though he is ultimately no match for Deadpool, he does hold his own in the fight. Despite his incredible powers, he is often depicted being kidnapped by supervillains in his appearances and needing to be rescued by the heroes. It's frankly kind of bizarre that he can apparently rewrite reality to make Galactus the bringer of gifts, but can't escape from a comically oversized bear trap on Dr. Doom's roof without help.
Wow! Santa is weirdly powerful, but also apparently not powerful at times when he's like, I'm just gonna be here and not do anything.
I guess it just depends on his mood and, well, probably who's writing him.
Yeah, definitely who's writing him.
Yeah. Well, that's all the time we have for this holiday special team up.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a fantastic holiday season.
And a happy new year.
Merry Christmas!